Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Snapshot episode 76. I'm Brennan Patrick, joined always by Marvel Snap phenom Cam Best. Cam, your week in Marvel Snap, sir.
Well, they made the patch I would have made. Like, if you actually, okay, I'm not even gonna say that. Like, they made the patch I would have made. They made a better version of the patch I would have made, because my plans for, like, the patch I would have made is just like a very bare bones nuke Professor X, nuke Hela, and they figured out ways to deal with both of them in a meaningful way that don't leave them with no identity, that leave them still functional in some ways. And we're in a metagame where I can come on this podcast and say Zoo is tier 1. And I've wanted to say those words forever, I think. And I think you'll understand why Zoo is so good. When you talked about why Bounce was as good as it was almost a year ago now, it's because it was just the most points with some mild interaction. That's Zoo now.
Yeah.
Zoo's a ton of points, and you have like 2 tech slots.
Yeah. And that's like probably, I feel like that's one of the most unfair things you do in this game is be either equal, or in Bounce's case back in the day, slightly above the other point slam decks, and then just have these absolute nuclear bombs of cards in the form of like Shang-Chi or some other tech card. It's just crazy. It's so unfair. But how is that? So I know I actually remember a comment we had on a video a long time ago was like, Cam is a fake Zoo enjoyer. They literally said that, like, Cam is a fake Zoo. So now the Zoo is tier 1. Are you, how's it going for you?
Maybe I am a fake Zoo player, because I played some Zoo and I was like, man, these mirrors are terrible. Let me just play a deck that beats them. And then I did that instead. I was like, because like more than a lot of other mirrors, Zoo mirrors, like all mirrors are fundamentally who drew the right stuff. But like the delta in Zoo between I drew Blue Marvel and I didn't draw Blue Marvel, or I drew Mockingbird, or I drew Gilgamesh, or whatever combination of that stuff is very high. Like it's a big delta if one person is drawing the good stuff and the other person is not. Very fun, very powerful deck. I haven't figured out any reasonable mirror tech beyond like play Iceman and it hits their Blue Marvel. That beat me a couple times, so like it's as good as you get. And so I ended up discovering something. I went on Untapped and I saw a list playing Loki with Blink in it, and I was like, oh, that's pretty clever. So I took that list and I took out a couple cards that I didn't like, and I played a couple cards that I did like. And I gotta tell you, I think that might actually, I think we could be blinking in the near future, because I'm playing what I like to call blokey. I'm bloked the fuck out. The thing is, you might be like, what the fuck are you doing with a blink in a Loki deck? The answer is any 3-drop turns into Loki. You just turn a 3-drop into Loki on turn 5, and you get like a 7-power dude to do it with. And it's like, the only thing that matters against Zoo is playing the card Loki. And if that's the only thing that matters, I would like to run 2 Lokis. And so that's what Blink is. And it's honestly pretty well positioned right now. I do think that's like a very meta thing to do, and just say the only thing that matters is playing Loki, so I'm going to do that. But that's what I did to try to combat the Zoo meta, was just be like, look, I'm going to play the card Loki, and I'm going to make sure I have a Loki deck that plays the card Loki more than other Loki decks, and that will give me an advantage, and then it did. And I also later spent a little time in a Discord call with several other top players messing around with Blink in Zoo, seeing if we can get like some onslaught action going on. I have found a little bit of a new pet card, I think.
In the form of onslaught?
In the form of Blink. Form of Blink. I think I've got like a Blink thing right now. And because like the thing is with Zoo, I just consider it like so very obviously good that it's like, oh, this is just the tier 1 deck. Everyone's going to be playing the tier 1 deck. When that happens, I would always rather attack it. So that's what I'm doing.
That's interesting. I just had a recent conversation with a Magic player and Magic Hall of Famer Frank Carson. I asked him that question. I said, from a theory perspective, would you rather be the player asking the questions or the player answering the question? He said, well, from a theory perspective, many dependent variables, but from a personal perspective, he would always like to ask the question. Sounds like you're the player that like to answer the question. How do you feel about
No, I'm a question asker.
You're a question asker? I mean, you were the mono red mythic player, right?
No, like asking the question, answering the question, different context in Magic, right? Like presenting a clock is asking the question in Magic. In Snap, all the decks I play ask a question. Like Loki is asking the question, do you beat this? Like it's very but like when there is a clear good deck with like clear defined weaknesses, that is something I feel very comfortable attacking. When the best deck is the best deck and it doesn't have those clear defined weaknesses, when it's not easy to find an angle, then I'll always play the best deck.
How do you feel about them hitting Hela? I know you're obviously happy about it, but we had talked about Hela a lot in the past in regards to it being this somewhat approachable linear deck, very powerful deck, and, you know, definitely a pet deck of a lot of players. How do you feel about them ultimately hitting the card?
I think ultimately I am disappointed in the way it turned out, which is Hela, that was a budget deck, is now probably going to have to play Corvus and Black Knight. And I don't like that, honestly. Like, one of my big things is I really want there to be good budget decks. Like, what I really miss is high Evo. I miss high evolutionary. And like maybe they'll get around to doing something to him, but like, I don't know. It's a very weird situation because when high Evo was good, it was a very easy budget recommendation and it was a fun, interesting deck. And so I really think they need to pay special attention to that card and make sure it remains not necessarily like busted or great, but like a plausible option. And it has not been a plausible option in a few months. And I think a lot of that is like we talk about power creep, right? All the high Evo cards are supposed to be stronger than comparable cards at their cost because you're playing high Evo to make it happen. But is high Evo Cyclops even a better card than Nocturne? Like, and so like you end up in this spot where there's a theory behind the card that doesn't match the reality. And so I think they need to like make sure that card keeps up because it was such a positive effect on the game of Marvel Snap. And I really do think they need to focus on it.
And just for our listeners that maybe didn't catch the OTA, the change to Hela is same power and cost, but now it resurrects cards with -2 power.
So the big thing I'm going to be banging on about for the next few months is please buff high evolutionary. That's going to be the drum I'm banging because I gotta say, like, I'm not saying like, you know, they listen to content creators and nerfed Hela because of me. I don't really think that's true. But I do think that if Hela ends up still playable, just more expensive, that's a terrible way to go about this. And they need to make sure that there is a deck that people can get early that is okay.
Yeah, I think strategically too, Hela had like a certain, what would the word be? You know, it was targeting a certain market as well. That, you know, maybe people don't have another analog to experience that same kind of strategy in like a deck that is immediately playable or that is approachable as well. In regards to other big changes with this OTA, you mentioned Professor X. So Professor X is now, instead of being a 5/1, it's a 5/2, but it says ongoing moving is the only way to add or remove cards from here. We had a few other changes. We had changes to Red Hulk being buffed. Yeah, but buffed. Quotations 6'9" to 6'10", but you know, instead of getting +4 power, now gets +3 power. Gilgamesh was changed from a 5'7" to a 5'9". Shauna notably went from 3/2 to 3/4. Captain America 3/2 to 3/3. And I mean, what do you think about the Cannonball, Stegron, or Ebony Blade changes? Ebony Blade.
Okay, hold on. Can I talk about one of the previous ones real quick?
Whichever one you want.
I think the Red Hulk nerf was unnecessary.
Okay.
I think it was unnecessary. I think it was like, I get why they did it. They were like, let's make some more diversity, but like, I don't really think that's going to happen. Like the issue that Red Hulk keeps running into, or that 6-drops generally keep running into, is you can only play like 2 ever. And so you're always going to play just the best ones on numbers. And in order to make Red Hulk not the best one on numbers, you kind of have to nerf him lower than they would be willing to nerf him. So I don't really feel like this is meaningfully affecting the card. Everyone that was already playing Red Hulk is still going to play Red Hulk. And all you did was make it slightly worse, and you didn't change. Like they said in the notes that the goal was to increase diversity of 6-drops, and I just don't see that happening. because it's not about like the actual numbers on the 6-drop. It's about, is it better than the next best option? And that's still true. And even if you're decreasing the delta a little bit, there's so few slots for a 6-drop that everyone who's already playing it is still going to play it.
Interesting. It reminds me, it's kind of a stretch, but it reminds me of an aspect of Hearthstone that I didn't really enjoy. Because the core set of Hearthstone wouldn't rotate and you have these like set classes, you would have archetypes that would show up in certain standard sets and in other standard sets, but they would have like slightly different cards. And I remember coming back, I would look at the top decks, I'm like, oh, there's Even Paladin, like something I had played a couple years ago. Yeah. And it still was Even Paladin, but it was just worse. And it was just like, for some reason, I just didn't like that. I didn't like playing effectively the same archetype with the same tools and the same macro strategy, but just having this sliding scale of like better or worse based off, replacement level cards.
Yeah. And it's like at Red Hulk, I don't really understand why, like, everyone who's already playing it will keep playing it until you nerf it to be significantly worse. Like, you got to prove to me that something is better, and I don't think anything has been. It's like, 2 procs, you get -1 from where it was last time. Okay, great, cool. Like, I guess I just don't get it. I guess I just don't understand their logic for that one. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a bit about this Gilgamesh buff from 5.7 to 5.9? Quite a big jump there, and I saw it sneaking into some of your lists that you posted very recently.
Yeah, it's the zoo build around, right? But like, here's the thing. I am of the opinion that Gilgamesh would be exactly this good at 5.7. All the zoo stuff would be the same. And what was actually happening that made Gilgamesh and zoo bad is that it's a deck that fills up all its lanes in a cannonball meta. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's a very obviously bad thing to be. And so I think people are going to look at this and draw the causal connection from they buffed Gilgamesh to this deck is OP now. And I think Gilgamesh is the least impactful of 3 changes that happened to make this happen. Mm-hmm. The most impactful being the Professor X change, and the second most impactful being the Shauna buff. Gilgamesh would be 3rd on that list.
Very interesting. Any others you want to talk about in regards to the OTA specifically?
Black Knight, people are going to be like, oh, they did that for no reason, but I think it's just like an objectively smart thing to do. You shouldn't have a card. Like, if the only way a card can exist is by saying you can't do anything about this, it shouldn't exist. That's my theory.
Yeah, so I mean this changes in regards to the Ebony Blade that used to say ongoing can't be destroyed, and its power can't be reduced. I remember we kind of talked a little bit of shit when they came out. This it's funny design, right?
Dumb,
yeah.
Right? Like,
now it just says can't be destroyed.
Yeah, it's not like it's like overpowered or anything. It's just like that's dumb text. That's dumb text.
It's kind of
I'm
annoying
sorry.
Too, yeah. It's kind of annoying to play against. It's like very antithetical, I feel like, to Marvel Snap. Is like
it's just it's just dumb. All right, it's just dumb. It's just dumb text to have on your card.
We had a new card release this week in the form of Cersei 5.7. Says on reveal, transform your other cards here into random cards that cost 1 more if able. It was a card that we were very high on in our power evaluations. How did it land for you?
As far as I'm concerned, this is an Annihilus staple. Like, this is the best second Annihilus we've ever gotten. And is she good outside of that? I don't play her outside of that. Mm-hmm. Straight up. Like, every Annihilus deck I play, she's in it. Every non-Annihilus deck I play, she's not in it. She's an Annihilus card. One thing I'm seeing, though, like, is people being very resistant to this idea. Like, I made a video where I was like, Cersei's really good in this deck. It was an Annihilus deck. And, like, a lot of the comments were like, don't listen to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Sometimes she rolls high, sure, but sometimes she rolls low, too. And I think that there is a very straightforward thing that needs to be talked about, which is there's not a better option than Cersei. If there was a better Cersei that didn't have the low rolls in it, I would play it. But there isn't. So I play Cersei, right? It's like Nocturne, right? If there was a Nocturne that couldn't roll bar with no name, that would be better than current Nocturne. But the fact that current Nocturne can roll bar with no name is not a reason not to play Nocturne. And I think you just have to be like, look, I don't think this card goes anywhere else, to be clear. But I also think that going in the Annihilus decks historically has been a good way to guarantee that you're going to be relevant. If you are a part of that Annihilus package, you are going to have metagame relevance as this just works. And so you have Mysterio, Mockingbird, Annihilus, Hood, Sentry, Cersei. That's 7 cards. There's going to be a lot of decks involving those 7 cards.
Mm-hmm.
And they all work together. And that is just straight up strong. Pick 5 cards, put them around those cards. You probably have a good deck.
Yeah. Well, let's head into our Bend&Snap for this week. First one's going to start with Zombies Go Nom Nom. Says, as a player, I actually was realizing something, by the way, when I was reading through the comments. I was like, because I feel like sometimes we beat a dead horse in regards to monetization. And I was like, why do we do that? Because ultimately, there is a bit of sometimes it's good to have the combo, but ultimately I think it's a bit, we're beating the dead horse and it just kind of is what it is. And I think the reason it happens is because every time we talk about monetization, the next week's comments, are often feeding into that conversation that we had, people giving their takes on it. Then we talk about it on that podcast, and then there are further comments. Yeah. So I think we have a bit of a snowball going here.
Sure.
So first one from Zombie says, as a player, I really like how balance has improved, where new releases are more often impactful, but not always super warping, and needing nerfs like we saw back during the Loki season and others. As a content creator, though, I definitely noticed way more questions about subs recently and complaints about not being able to keep up with the pace of new releases now that so many cards are good, 1 card a month, and no more S4 releases. It definitely reminds me a lot of a pre-Spotlight, though not exactly that level of bad complaints, and I feel like something has to give there eventually. Maybe more events that can give new cards like dinner can help out a bit, but it seems unclear how often these things might happen. Also, Brennan is spitting about not ever being able to stop, or you fall behind hard. I think that leads to some players having to play when they aren't having fun, and leads to this burnout feeling, forced to play to keep up long term, when the main reason someone should play a game is fun. Even in games like Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering, they let you stockpile quests up to 3 days, and even something that simple could go a long way to help reduce burnout for those experiencing it. But yeah, they really need some way to dive back into the lapsed player base, because I can't count how many returning players I see that quit within the same week because they fell too far behind.
I just did a video with TLSG.
You had that video, yeah. You were talking about having that video. How'd it go? Yeah, let's get the whole spark notes on it.
My takeaway from it was, this system is something that cannot exist for much longer. Mm-hmm. The returning player bit of it, at least. They need to do something about that, or no one can ever come back to this game. And I think that's a mistake, because this is a very fun game and a lot of people will want to come back to it. Mm-hmm. And you'll be like, this is a mobile game, right? People drift in and out. It's a card game. People drift in and out.
It's a pick up and play game as well. Yeah. If one thing that really bothers me, and I'm sorry to interrupt really quick, but I'm going to let you get back to it immediately. It's like, sorry, it just reminds me of somebody else that said something like that. Is that...
Yeah, me? Did it remind you of me?
No, it reminds me of a celebrity who said that. The one thing I love about Marvel Snap is just how fun and interactive the games are and how short their games are. And often if you encounter a situation where you're like, oh, I need to kill some time, I'll be on an airplane, I'll be in a car. It's like, let me boot up Marvel Snap and play. The game is the absolute opposite of that. The game is the absolute opposite of queue up and play if you're not a constant player that's already playing every single day. And I think that's a huge miss on there. Anyway,
it is definitely an issue. I talked to TLSG. He spent a decent amount of money. He's buying the battle pass. He's spending, I believe he mentioned, a couple $100 since he came back. And he's roughly caught up now. But it's also just when you think about what he had to do that, to spend that time and that money and all of that. And he didn't say he didn't make the most optimal purchasing decisions, because he's a content creator. He did some content purchases. You could probably do it a little bit cheaper, but it was a chunk, I think. And that just doesn't seem workable. You should be like, hey, welcome back to the game. Here's a reward track for the first week back that culminates in you getting a free deck or whatever, right? Something like that. And I just don't think that you could do returning player bundles or whatever, but I think they should do a little more than that. They should do more than just hey, here's a cheap bundle that you can get. That feels there should be some extra quests or whatever. Working into the returning player quest system where you get big rewards for the first week you come back after not playing for 3 months or whatever. Like just something like that does feel like it would be very helpful and on the whole probably a net positive.
Yeah. The craziest thing to me is like when I think about, if I take an extended break, I think about coming back, like even if I had the resources, like even if I have the money, like the actual just logistical processes of acquiring these cards can be such a pain in the ass. Like wait for it to rotate in the shop, open up all the spotlight caches, progress the track. They've actually increased the animation speed and like the ability to do that a lot. But it is like it is a massive chore. For me, I saw it because we saw it on the developer roadmap. That's one reason I actually really have wanted draft mode to be a thing. And I know it might not be, kind of synonymous with their current acquisition model, but I want to have a Marvel Snap that I can put down for a few months and just pick up and play because I like the game. I don't want to pick up and play and it's just like the game is just like, hey, welcome back. Fuck you. Like, that's what it feels like. That is honestly what it feels like. It is so daunting and you are so far away sometimes from being able to play like that cool deck that Cam just posted. You're like, oh, sweet. Bounce is back. Zoo is back. I have a renewed interest in the game.
Now I only need the season pass card and maybe this card that not a lot of people bought, like Nocturne or whatever, right? Like now all I need is just this, and it's like it's a tough spot, right? Yeah. Like it's just a hard situation to put your player base in, especially when, and I think this is to the game's detriment, right? Like when we talk about why I can't do budget content, right? There's no hard and fast rule for it. Cause like, you can replace the Nocturne in the Zoo deck that I'm playing with Snow Guard, right? But you have to think of that, unfortunately. Like, no one's going to tell you that unless you're listening to this podcast, in which case, there you go. You just learned that. But it's hard to ask people to recognize the roles that cards have. The reason I structure my content the way that I do is so people understand why the cards in a certain deck are there, so they can feel empowered to make changes based on the understanding of the role each card plays. That's my theory. In practice, nobody does that. I structure my entire content around making it so people understand the decks well enough to make replacements, and no one does it.
Yeah, I mean, sideboard guides in Magic the Gathering are perfect analog. I mean, there's so many content creators like in that game who they will almost refuse to give out a written sideboard guide because like it is so important that you understand why the cards are there, because a sideboard fundamentally is this is for the metagame and this is for your metagame, not the metagame. It's for your metagame. And still people are just like, give me the fucking sideboard guide. Like, I don't want
I respect that. I would want the sideboard guide.
So
I want to shortcut that. I want to shortcut that, right? I get it. But it's like, it feels like I structure the entirety of my content around, hey, this is why this card is in here. And then what your job is to go, oh, I don't have that card, but here's why it's in here. Now I need to think of, A, is there a good replacement for what this card's role is? Like, am I willing to play a slightly worse card in the role as long as the role is filled? How do I manage that? Like, for example, Limbo, for example. Nocturne is your anti-Limbo thing. Snow Guard can also be your anti-Limbo thing. Snow Guard also overlaps by being a 1-drop. That's a pretty good thing for it to have. There's some other location control that it gives you. It does a lot of the same things. It's a little bit less efficient, but it does a lot of the same things. It's a totally fine replacement. But sometimes the drop-off from the Nocturne to the Snow Guard is too much, and you just want to be able to do something else. And so you end up having to be like, okay, well, I guess I won't have anything in that role. I'll have to find a different thing to, like, a different angle to attack. And that's something I just really wish people did more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, absolutely. It's an interesting dynamic because, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people encounter the situation where they queue into your video or your post on Twitter, they see the deck and they're like, oh, I can't build it. What's the next deck I can build? It's just like,
there is a lot of that. And it makes me feel sad every time because, like, I hate when people are like, I can't build this. That's your fault. It's like, I'm sorry, man. I tried.
All right. Next one is from Set Camper. Say, welcome back, boys. I was dumbfounded by the episode lapse given Brendan's professed unbroken track record, just like not being sick.
He's never been sick either.
Never been sick. I've been impressed recently by how many words Cam uses in passing that I almost have never heard spoken, calling out his, do you even read, bro, word of the week, bailiwick, or Bollywick? Is it bailiwick?
Bailiwick.
Yeah, one's sphere of operations or particular area of interest. My interest in, and then,
that part over. Next paragraph. My interest in Snap continues to wane, but I never grow tired of the conversations here. It is pretty crazy, actually, Set Camper.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this for fucking 76 weeks. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people. I've lived on this planet for almost 30 years. I've talked to a lot of people in my life. I've never heard more random fucking words in my life than sitting here across from KM. And sometimes I let them go. I'm like, maybe I know what that means. maybe I understand the context of that. But goddamn, there's some wild dictionary words being used here.
I am as we speak here, I'm looking across at a bookshelf. It's got all the Game of Thrones books on it. It's got some Neil Gaiman on it. It's got some J.R.R. Tolkien on it, right? Like got some Terry Pratchett on it. And then people are like, why do you use words like bailiwick? And it's like, well, that's not my fault. It's their fault. Like, sorry, dude.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to real people when I was a teenager. I just read Drizzt Do'Urden. Don't fucking get mad at me.
I've honestly learned more words, I think, doing this podcast than like anything, like any other singular thing I could point to in my life. Other things would be, pre-memory kind of initial development as a human being when I was a child. But outside of that, I don't think I've heard more just like words. I'm like, what the I don't even speak this language. Like I'm trying to learn this language that Cam speaks sometimes on this podcast.
It's not even like a thing I do on purpose. It's just like, oh, that's the word for that.
Yeah. Once you get used to it, I do the same thing, obviously with smaller words, but I do the same thing. Like once you get used to a word being like, kind of like the word you describe something with, and especially when there's like nuance to what you're describing, you're like, damn, I've got the perfect
that's
word
like a
for this.
specific word for the thing I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's
got a big lexicon,
Yeah. I'm lexiconed up, dude.
Yeah.
I'm all Lex. I'm Lex Luthor.
Lex Luthor. All right, next one's from Fabled. They say, I think one reason.
Yeah, little known fact, it actually is short for lexicon.
Lex Luthor?
Yeah, Lexicon Luthor. That's his name.
How does that? What is that? Really?
No.
It's like the fuck.
Not. Of course.
You gotta understand. I'm gonna trust. You use big words. I'm gonna trust you with anything you say. Like,
right.
You are a subject matter expert on anything. Get those big words over there. All right, next one's
Fable. His name's Lexicon Luthor.
I think one reason the Snap player base expects to be able to compete completely free to play is because that was explicitly how it was pitched by the community at global launch. That's the initial hook that got me to download and grind through Pool 3. Looking back, I'm not sure if Second Dinner ever said if this expectation was on purpose or it's just a community hallucination, but before the rework of series drops, expectations were set at every card for free within N months of that card releasing, and that expectation is no longer being met.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah, it is true.
Yep, that's true. That's a true thing. Now, it turns out there were just like a bunch of problems with that system in terms of, having the game continue to exist.
Yeah.
But I do think that is how it was designed, and then they were originally the way it was designed is like X cards for free after N months, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that only makes sense if you're like rapacious with the price of anything new. Yeah, there you go. You like that?
Yeah. Can we get that defined?
Sure. Rapacious as in like criminally high price gouging. Like
sounds like a good word. I'm going to use that in the future.
I actually, considering like the root word of it and the etymology of that, it might not be like particularly a good word to use in the future.
Yeah, I didn't think about the root until you mentioned that.
Yeah, the root word is unpleasant, but it is, you had to be dramatic with it. And then what happened was they were going to be very pricey with Nexus events, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that model makes sense as long as people are engaging in your incredibly pricey gacha, right? But everyone hated that. So they got rid of the incredibly pricey gacha, and now they're like, okay, we need to do a completely different economy.
I remember Jerry Thompson was on the podcast, and he mentioned that he actually liked those events, and he was
Yeah, because Jerry, like me, has played way too many gacha games. Like, that's our friendship developed over Genshin and Honkai. Like, that's what happened.
Have you
there.
played the card
You're
game
like,
in
oh,
Genshin?
Jerry Thompson, you're friends because of magic. Wrong. We're friends because we spent a bunch of money on JPEGs. All right.
Oh, that could be damn. That's funny. That could be, in a different universe, you guys would be selling booty coin or something like that. Buying JPEGs.
Yeah.
Jerry,
Well, I mean, I guess
Jerry
they're not
Thompson
JPEGs.
KM best.
They're not JPEGs in the games that we were playing. They're characters, okay? They're not just JPEGs. They have like moves.
Yeah.
They have a queue.
I just was
ability.
picturing like this alternate universe where KM Best and Jerry Thompson are like the oligarchs of this NFT gotcha game.
Yeah, where we've invented the bootyverse.
Slanging booty coin.
Yeah. It's crushing it.
Have you played the card game in Genshin Impact?
No.
Okay.
I quit just about when it came out.
I tell you about my story with Genshin Impact. Did I tell you?
I don't think so.
They came out with a card game. And I was like, that looks cool.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, you have. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, for people who haven't heard it, I was like, that looks cool. Let me download Genshin and play the card game. I'm like, oh, yeah, you can play the card game. You just have to hit level 30. And I was like, okay. So I played for like 60 hours. I think I spent money. And then I finally played the card game. I think I played it for like an hour. And I was like, shit.
Got your ass, though.
Got my ass for sure. I remember I got to the card game. It was like, yeah, no ladder, no nothing. Like they don't really care about balance. It's just for fun. I was like, the fuck? I was in some tavern like trying to play. I was like, God damn it. Yeah, they got my ass for sure. Next one is from Novri. They say, when your Jeff gets +5 and you feel so alive, that's Namore. When you buff all the cards, if alone there they stand, that's Namore.
That's really good.
That's fire. That's fire. That's fire. All right, next one's from Roku. When you guys brought up Magic the Gathering, I started playing again a week or so ago. And after not
sorry.
after not playing for a decade, and I've been enjoying playing the game. I think that the thing I miss that I don't get with Snap is the fun aspect of playing a game. I get too competitive minded when it comes to Snap, and I feel like it's not that much of a competitive game compared to MTG. At least when I spend money, I get packs and new cards rather than spending money in Snap to get a key where I might not even get the new card that happens to shape the meta. I'm just slowly...
Hold on. You're saying I prefer loot box A to loot box B.
Yes.
Because like what Snap is doing is like not having a bunch of draft chaff. Like that's I don't know. I prefer this other loot box formulation.
Magic does have
actually.
limited though, which is like it's like an economical way of engaging with it. But they end with I'm slowly falling out of love with Snap, and I love with Snap, and it has felt like more of a chore to play rather than having fun like you used to when the first game came out. I've also noticed this, not the same dynamic, but I play a lot of card games very competitively, and yeah, as a result, I don't really enjoy those games casually at all. And when I play Magic, I actually try to like not consume content and just enjoy the game casually and try to be just a Timmy.
Yeah,
it's really fun for me. Because if I take it seriously, I'm like fucking lands and bombs, and it just pisses me off. Like I played a little bit of Modern Horizons 3, came out recently. It's like a master set kind of thing. I was drafting, I was having a great time. And then, I started playing a little bit too much, and it kind of kicked in, and like my ego kicked in. Because for me, I hold myself to a standard of being good at these games and this is a fault, but it's part of my persona to be good at card games. So when I'm not, it like really bothers me. And I was having fun. Then I was a little too many drafts in. I noticed like the card game copium where I was like, motherfucking lands, motherfucking bombs, and my opponents are dropping. And I was getting angry.
They just keep playing. What is it? What's the like super busted common in MH3?
Well, I think Chrysalis.
2RG. Yeah. Yes, Chrysalis. I keep getting Chrysalis.
Yeah, and I was getting frustrated. So I was like, I'm gonna take a little bit of a break. I was gonna take, because Magic is a game that Yeah, I definitely have a lot of respect for players that take that game competitively and like travel the world and stuff, and then you have some of those variance levers, which I don't think take away from the skill of the game, but I think they do create levels of frustration that I would have a hard time dealing with.
I think it's just so cool that like every time a Modern Horizon set comes out, there's like 2 just completely busted insane cards in whatever format. And like right now it's Chrysalis in limited, and I saw on Twitter LSV saying like, I have no idea how they made this card if they played it one time.
Talking about Nadu, or is it the
Chrysalis? Nadu's the other one.
Yeah, Nadu's...
He was talking about Chrysalis in draft. Nadu is the one where it's just like, why are the quotes in the places they are on that card? Where it's like if they put the quotes in a different spot, I think it would be like a plausibly weaker thing, or at least if they formatted it in a certain way. But they formatted it in such a way that the ability is applied to all of your creatures and can trigger twice on all of your creatures. And if it could only trigger twice per turn, like the whole ability, that would be one thing. But each instance of the ability is applied separately. And that's just like, it's just crazy. Cause you just get the feeling like they were like, oh, we need like a good commander here. Let's put a commander in the set. And then it comes out and we're just like, oh man, we worded that wrong. And now it's just broken forever.
Yeah, you should see that. You should see that card in Legacy. It's ridiculous. I don't play it, but that's what I choose to watch if I do. It's actually ridiculous. Yeah, Writhing Chrysalis, awesome card. I remember I was playing Sealed because I was playing some pre-releases, and I was like, damn, 4 mana, I lose the fucking game instantly, and it's a common. Ridiculous. 4 mana, like 6/7, just like off the rip almost.
Hold on, it's a 4 mana 4/5 across 3 bodies that ramps you, not a 6/7. Come on now.
It gets +1/+1 counters every time you sack one of those things. Then they have one.
I guess it's like kind of a 4/7. I don't know. It's like a 2/3.
It's a 2/3. Yeah, it's a 2/3. So then it's a 4/5, and I mean if they have any other thing, it's just ridiculous. Yeah. It's honestly, I think that card actually might be slightly overrated, but still, it's busted for sure. It's definitely
it's just like,
there's a worse card in my opinion. It's called Psychic Frog. It's obviously developed for modern.
Isn't that a rare?
Yes, it is a rare. But it's not a mythic. It's not a mythic. Okay, I know common is much more egregious, but that card it says 2 mana, blue, black. Discard a card, and for each card you discard, this gets a +1/+1 counter. Anytime this deals damage to an opposing player, you draw a card, and you can exile 3 cards from your graveyard to give it flying. If you're not playing. If your opponent plays that on turn 2 and you're not playing white or black with something with target removal, maybe blue, right? You have some sort of enchantment. Like let's say you're playing red or green. It's so annoying. What are you gonna do? Try to burn that? Like they just discard the whole hand and they draw it. They just draw it, and it flies. It's like what the fuck is this? It was actually
it's a Psychotog reference. I like it.
Yeah, I love the reference, but in limited, oh my goodness, that.
Yeah, but like I mean, like that, like there's probably a lot of just like cards that you play in limited that are just like a rare in a set this high powered where you're just like, oh, I'm dead.
2 mana is that's why it's frustrating. But yeah. Again, we're getting down to the reason why I decided to take a little break is I was trying to be a Timmy and have fun, and then my inner nerd is going, motherfucking 2 mana flying.
Just like your opponent has like 3 chrysalises, and you're just like, all right,
in their shield pool.
Yeah, it's cool. That's great.
Yeah. All right. Next one is from Will Carpenter. Cam Beast Mode. Checking in, bro. Been back on the grind for 3 weeks now. Thank you for helping me get my act together. He said, "You got this." I don't know if you remember this comment. It was like a 3-bullet comment. Someone was like, I believe Will had not been going to the gym, and you said something. I don't remember the exact reference.
Right. Okay. Yes, I am familiar with this. I'm glad you've been back in the gym. I've still been skipping way too much, but I'm glad you've been back in the gym.
I'm just waiting for the day that, Cam just becomes like an only leg day kind of guy.
I did leg day after the podcast yesterday.
Oh,
last
nice.
time we did it, when you were like, you should go do leg day. I did leg day. There you go.
I just want you to be an absolute tyrant on airplanes. Just have these massive thighs.
I already have those. I already have very large legs.
If you have big thighs, I'm gonna tell you. You want to? I'm sorry for people here from Marvel. Cheeked up. So I was not expecting that. So there, if you fly like a normal airline, there's this. They have this thing called like premium economy, and obviously it depends on the airline. But if you have big thighs, actually 1,000 times worse than regular economy. The reason is regular economy, they have the. If you're watching the video version, they have the armrests that go between you and the other people. But in premium, it's like a fucking wall. You know, it's like a hard wall. They give you more leg room. But dude, if you have big thighs, you like legit cannot fit into that. And I'm sorry to my compatriots that sit next to me sometimes where maybe, you know, a little bit of the thigh kind of leaks into that armrest, but I can't fit in the hard in between the walls, man. I can't.
I've just accepted my size on airplanes, and it's just like I feel bad for the people next to me, but not bad enough to do anything about it. Like,
yeah. Well, yeah, I think at one point, because we had a comment here. Someone was talking about losing much weight. Yeah, at one point I was 260 pounds, and yeah, I probably didn't fit super well on airplanes. All right, next one. Oh, speaking of, next one is from John. I started training at 18 at around 135 pounds. Never played sports, just played games all day and all night. Yeah, welcome to our youth. Now, 12 years later, I'm still only 165 pounds, but best squat, bench, deadlift is 45, 308, and 551. It's pretty good. In competition, tested. Oh, so tested means no steroids, by the way. That's what that means. These things take a lot of time and effort. I've taken a small step back from the top end of strength training over the last couple of years, but I would train to kill with these too. Well, I'm definitely, so squat, 45, bench.
Wait, what was the bench?
The bench is 308, so.
That's such an odd number.
Yeah, that is an odd number. But
like,
if
that's
you're
like
in competition,
I'm in a powerlifting competition.
Yeah,
number,
for sure.
Where it's like I got the small plates.
What about the 551 in the deadlift?
It's the small plates, right?
Yeah. What are these plates for? Ants?
Yeah. The smallest plates I have are 2.5s. I'd imagine that there's smaller ones to get the exact numbers in competition.
Yeah. I personally have not done a lot of deadlifting. I don't really plan to either. Just seems, I don't know. I had issues with my low back when I played.
It's fun, man.
When I played rugby and stuff. So
it's a fun lift.
I like bench. Bench is fun for me.
Bench is fun, yeah.
All right, next one.
I got like the shoulder issue, so it's harder for me to actually bench. It's really killing my gym sessions.
If you were, let's say tomorrow, you were able to get insurance that subsidized that surgery.
Yes, I would get that shit surgery. I would get that done immediately. Okay. Absolutely, without a question.
Well, maybe that will happen in the future. Who knows? Yeah, I don't know if I have on my right shoulder, I have a 3rd-degree AC separation. So basically, my clavicle is not really connected to the rest of the socket, and it's a really popular rugby injury. About 5
popular people. Yeah, like everyone loves having it.
No,
it's so popular. Everyone's just like, I can't wait till I get my AC separation.
Yeah, so 4 players on my team got the same injury. 3 I'm one of them, so 3 of them got surgery and I did not, and like my shit came back stronger than all of theirs. You know, I'll tell you the reason why I didn't get surgery is I hurt my shoulder. I thought it was out of socket, and I was like, okay, it's really bad. You know, it hurt really fucking bad. And I was like vomiting, and yeah, so I went to the emergency room, and I got there, waited like 6 hours. Is in LA, and eventually I go through the process, and at the end they give me the X-ray, and they're like, "Yep, nothing's broken." I was like, "All right," and they didn't tell me anything else. They just said nothing's broken. I was like, "I am a bitch," and I just left, and I was like, damn, this shit really hurts, and I kind of like rehabbed it by myself, and I went to a orthopedic like a month or 2 later, and he was like, oh, you didn't get the surgery? I was like, surgery? He's like, what do you mean? He's like, this is like a serious injury. I had no idea. I thought it was a complete, like, I thought it, I was one of the first people. I had no idea. I thought I went to the emergency room, like, you know, overreacted, and this shit didn't work. My shoulder didn't work for months, bro. It was bad. And
I went to the doctor, and he was like, oh, I'm pretty sure I know what you have. And I was like, I don't know. I want to be sure. Let's do an MRI. And then I didn't fit in the MRI machine.
Okay.
And so I had to go to the big boy MRI machine.
Is that the one they use for animals?
No, it's just like the one they use for fat people, which I am.
They have one that they use for animals that I know that.
No, there's like, I think that one's like when you're like the really big large. Yeah, but like I just needed one that, like, what actually happened was they tried to put me in it and it didn't get past my shoulders.
Okay.
Like you like I know what that sounds like, but that is exactly what happened. Like I couldn't get in it. And so we reschedule. I come back for the second one, and then it turns out it was exactly what the doctor said. And by the way, being in an MRI machine, that fucking sucks.
They have open MRI machines, by the way.
Yeah, it fucking blows. It's not fun at all.
Mm-hmm.
I end up like there's like a panic button. I press it.
Yeah.
But they don't do anything. And like 30 seconds later, she comes in. I think it's because of the panic button. I was just done. I had made it the whole way. I pressed the panic button anyway. And we get the MRIs back. It's exactly what the doctor thinks it is. And he basically says like, look, man, I could give you the surgery or I could give you a cortisone shot. If I give you a cortisone shot, it'll hurt like shit. You'll be back here in 6 months. If you do the surgery, we'll actually fix it. You're just like, okay. And then they did, and then it actually fixed it. I was just like, all right, you know what? Maybe I should have just listened to you the first fucking time. I could have saved myself the MRI. I could have saved myself all that shit. I should have just listened to you the first time.
Pro tip, for anybody that randomly encounters this scenario, they do have open MRI machines. They're just sometimes not covered on insurance. Depending on your insurance, they can still be about the same price. And I recommend it if you have issues with MRIs or if you just find them particularly unpleasant. So I had hurt my neck very badly in jiu-jitsu at one point, and I didn't know I did. And I had it was really bad. So I had basically like my high cervical spine, like I had this like swelling, and it was like apparently swelling on my brainstem. So I had a bunch of like psychological issues, and yeah, it was really bad. And basically the top of my head was numb for like a long time, a lot of vomiting. And yeah, I went into one of those MRI machines for the neck at one point, and that combined with some of the issues I've been having due to the injury, it was fucking not pleasant, like at all. And I don't think I'll ever go into another MRI machine. It's not an open MRI after that. Like it was like traumatically bad. Like it sucked. So I feel you there. But open MRIs.
I'm not claustrophobic, but that's because I'm never in a small space.
Yeah, I'm not maybe I am until they stick you in that burn.
Yes, you're not claustrophobic until you're actually in the situation, and you're like, okay, maybe I am fucking claustrophobic.
Yeah, I don't know if you're ever like a kid, and you probably were a kid.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been a kid. It's hard to say.
You ever went down one of those like slides at recess, and the kids would clog it up and stick you in the middle of the slide sometimes?
No, that sounds horrible.
It is horrible.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
It is horrible. Yeah, do that. Grow up in Texas in the 115-degree heat, and they're doing that. I'm surprised nobody died.
I would fucking scream my little head off.
Yeah, they can't hear you. You're in a slide.
I'm loud, bro.
All right, next one's from Zegum. They say, Bend&Snap, you think it would make any sense in any way for SD, money, balance, optics, and other things to release cards at Series 4 instead of all cards starting at Series 5?
No, I mean
optics.
The way optics, sure, like the same way optics of just like giving people stuff for free is good, right? But the thing is, it seems very clear to me that they've made a concerted effort to make every card good, and whether that is the season pass card getting a buff or any of these other cards that we've seen get a buff. I can't think of a reason why, if all the product is being released at the same level of quality, you would randomly discount one. I can't think of a reason for it.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Next one's some Rishi.
They would have to like make cards specifically like one of the things I think about a lot is Glenn Jones talking about Iron Elbow. Like, how do we make cards that are just like, oh, that would be cool to have in the game, but we don't necessarily want to actually sell it? And so, like, the Deadpool's Diner thing feels like it could be a good venue for that. But, like, when you look at Cassandra Nova, it's like, this was clearly a card that was designed to be a card that is being sold. Mm-hmm. And they're just putting it on the Deadpool's Diner. But, like, what if they did, like, a monthly Deadpool's Diner where they gave out, like, I don't know, a Jessica Jones level, just like, here's a card. Like, an uncommon. What if they used Deadpool's Diner as a way to distribute uncommons? That would be an interesting thing to do. Yeah. I don't know if that's a thing people want, though, because I think when people say they want Series 4 cards, what they mean is they want a Series 5 quality at the price point of Series 4. That's what they mean.
I could see theoretically some distinction being made between universally applicable and powerful cards versus cards that are clearly support cards in an archetype, even if they are very powerful. That being said, I do think that the judgment of, if a card is universally applicable or just something that fits into an archetype is hard, and it is ultimately subjective, and they would eventually get some of those wrong, and it would really piss people off.
Yep. I think that's a really tough thing to do. And so whenever I try to think about like reasons for why this would make sense, like it's for the same reason that I would never expect Jeff to downgrade, right? Because it's like, what's the point? That's one of the few things people are actually convinced is worth the 6,000 tokens. Why would you sell it for less? And as long as the directive seems to be make sure every card is worth the expense, I don't understand why they'd cut the expense from a business standpoint. I think that for me, it would make more sense to explore alternate ways of getting people cards rather than just, let's give 50% off the card we think is the worst this month. That just seems unpleasant.
Next one is from Richie. Question for next week: If Professor X / Cannonball and Hella get nerfed, which they did, what are the choices for the top of the meta if that were to happen? Like,
if that were to happen, who could say?
I picked this coming up because, damn, Richie kind of got it right.
Oh, Richie knocking it out of the park here. What do you know, Richie?
Richie's in that secret content creator channel where they get fed the patches and all the information early.
How early do people think we get that? All seriousness.
I didn't even know it actually existed.
How do you think every content creator makes the video that they do?
How often do you think I tune into?
Fair enough.
Yeah,
but like, it's just one of those things where it's like, it is, as far as I'm aware, public knowledge that some amount of time before a patch, sometimes they will tell content creators what the patch is going to contain so they can do their coverage immediately. I don't think this is NDA'd. I am fairly certain it is an explicit part of the creator program that this is something that is a perk of it. We should probably check that before clicking publish on this episode.
Well, I'll take responsibility for saying that because I knew about that and I'm not in the content creator, so sue me.
But yeah, I am fairly certain that is like an explicit thing that people are aware of. Yeah. But one thing that really sticks out is like I feel like people think we get it way earlier than we do. Like this is not a thing we have a lot of lead time on.
I'm gonna create a burner YouTube account called Richie, and I'm gonna get in the content creator program. I'm gonna get that shit early. I'm gonna go content everybody's podcast.
If he's leaving this on the previous episode as a comment, that's way before that could ever happen to any. Like that is not something like this is just actually he had a read.
Yeah,
like this person had a read.
Hell yeah, Richie, nice. Yeah, I just can't believe that. That's actually crazy. You got it. Perfectly.
Yeah, it's just like there's this was in no way something anyone knew. Mm-hmm. So Richie, congratulations on your job at Second Dinner.
Yeah, fucking Glenn Jones has a burner YouTube account. He just goes like, "Hey, what do you think?"
Yeah, well, imagine this happened, dude.
All right, next on some looping. As a longtime player of Marvel Snap, I do think you, Cam, are an exception in what you want from Second Dinner. Of course, I also want the game to be cheaper, but I also still want something to work towards being an endgame player, hovering around top 100 to 300 on ladder. Character mastery would have been that thing. New splits would have been that thing. And in this new roadmap, yes, we get a new card, but there's nothing I can point at in the near future that will change the endgame experience permanently. That's why I'm personally disappointed with this, and the free card does not compensate for the negative feelings the roadmap gave me overall, where it might for you. On one hand, I'm hopeful that it'll get better, but how long will it take before things like that are in concept? A bit of a rant, but want to share my perspective.
I think that's super valid. I just like whenever I hear someone say stuff like this, it's like, yeah, totally. I don't understand where there's conflict here. Different people
love character
different
mastery.
Stuff out of the game.
Character mastery is, I think it's dope. I think that
like I don't care about this stuff at all, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think honestly, a good example of character mastery, and I think how effective it can be is like just look at the Phoenix Force community. Like they truly believe they're Phoenix Force players, and that's like a thing. And they take there's a level of solidarity in that. And
I almost spit out my water all over my computer. I said that.
But like it's cool when people have an identity around a deck, especially a deck that is somewhat eternal, kind of like they are in Marvel Snap, because the cards don't often.
Yeah, like
get
Loki.
completely
It's always cool when there are Loki gamers. Loki gamers, famously cool people, right?
That's so funny that you say that, because I never thought about that. Where like the Phoenix Force players, like they're actually respected, and people are like, "Damn, those are cool." But then Loki, it's like, what kind of fucking
fuck this guy? We should kill him with hammers. All right, let's kill this guy.
How little of a personality do you need to have to be a Loki player? That's your identity.
Okay, we should kill this guy. Let's kill him. Let's kill him with hammers.
It's so true. It's like, damn, Phoenix Force. Like, damn, there's like this Phoenix Force cabal, and it's like. It's
like a sliding scale. If the deck is too good, you're not a deck gamer anymore. Like if the deck has to be bad for you to be considered like a master of esoteric wisdom. If the deck is good, you're just a filthy fucking net decker.
I just love that. Like, how little of a personality do you need to have to be a Loki gamer? Nah. It is weird. Like it is bizarre that people perceive it in different ways, or at least I think people perceive it in different ways.
Here's another take. I think that there are far fewer quote unquote deck masters than people think they are. Just across card games, people are like, "Oh, this is the guy who plays the most of this. He must be better than like this guy." Like we think that because someone specializes in such a niche that makes them better at that niche than someone who is a better player than them, and that is fucking horseshit.
Yeah, let me tell you what the often reality is, that someone is not good at the game, so they find something to identify themselves under, in which to rise to a certain level of subject matter expert. That is niche and sometimes not relevant. But then when it finally circles around and becomes relevant, they often, they sometimes get their time, and then often not. This happens a lot in Flesh and Blood, the hero-based game, where there's like this idea that in the community Discord, and Flesh and Blood, the Flesh and Blood Discord is a community-based Discord, that there's like, they call it the purple Discord, but there's like these Discord masters. And I'll tell you, I go to a lot of Pro Tours, a lot of World Champs. I don't meet a lot of Discord masters. It's not what they talk about. It's not valid. It's just like there's always this like kind of like rumor and I don't know, air of mystique around like, they play a lot in the Discord, and I'm like,
yep. That's just like, that's sort of what I think about when I think about like the Phoenix Force Masters.
Hey,
it's like,
I've been in that Discord.
I'm a master of this esoteric knowledge that allows me to take this 45% win rate deck to 48%.
I think Phoenix Force is different because I'm fundamentally biased, but also
I actually kind of like. I don't hate Phoenix Force.
It does some
I just think that like
stuff.
it's a cool ass deck.
Definitely is esoteric.
Super cool.
It definitely is
esoteric and weird, and there's a bunch of like weird bullshit you have to know.
Yeah.
And I think it's good that there's decks like that, but I also think it's good that it's not like a great deck, because if it was a great deck, it's just like, that's a large mental load to ask people to carry.
Yeah. It's not like I'm being a hella expert where it's like, okay, you're just an asshole. Yeah.
You're a casino. You're a big fan of like taking the vig. Like you're just like, if your friends are making a bet, you're like, here, I'll give you odds on it, and then you give them like plus 105. And you're just like taking that 10%. That's what you're a fan of if you're hella. You're a small time casino owner.
I hope all of you listening to this, and particularly the people that are getting offended by it, know that this is not serious.
I know, wrong. He's wrong. 100% serious. He meant every word he said.
Yeah. Next one is from Buckles. They say, Bend&Snap, with the recent confirmation they are looking at Kang and seeking feedback/ideas, what is your dream effect for him to end up with?
So I think that I don't have a dream effect for Kang, but what I will tell you is I think they should abandon entirely the concept of playing with time as far as it concerns turns. I don't think that's a workable thing. I think that in a game where simultaneous turns are a thing, it either ends up too good or too bad. You can't fucking do it. We've done Daredevil already. That was kind of incredibly smart. I don't think you can do another thing in that space. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I doubt it though. Lean into time travel in terms of like, I don't know, changing how other cards work or something, or lean into the variance bit with Kang where he like shuffles a variant of himself into your deck or something. Like lean into anything but what his current space is. His current design space to me unworkable.
Yeah. Could you imagine? They could actually do it in a digital game. You play Kang and it reverts all cards to their original design.
That would be sick. I was thinking more like you play Kang and it reverts all cards to their like original power.
Yeah,
like
I mean that would probably be more
like
simple.
Global Shadow King kind of thing.
Global
like I like it's obviously not a good idea, right? But
yeah,
like that's why so many Kang ideas,
niche knowledge there. Could you imagine?
Yeah, it's like these are like the issues with Kang are that it's very hard to do something in flavor that isn't really stupid, and that could be like stupid as in broken or just stupid as in stupid. And so he's just a very hard card, I think. I don't envy their design team. It does seem like a difficult thing to come up with, where a Kang that actually makes sense.
All right, last question or last comment is from Sir. They say, could you please stop baiting us into writing? This is my favorite podcast. I know it's good for YouTube metrics, but it'd be nice to see some actual comments. So I picked this out.
I genuinely do not try to bait you into that. I just think the joke is funny. I think Brendan does try to bait it.
So the reason why I picked this comment is it's actually wildly inaccurate, and that's what's funny. So the Snapshot.
Sure.
The Snapshot is a pretty fucking small podcast. It gets 2,000 to 3,000 views on YouTube. And for that, last week, which is a slow week, we got 94 comments. I'll tell you about less than 10 of those where this is my favorite X podcast. Let's look at some comparable podcasts. So I'll use my podcast, for example. So Arsenal Pass, by far the biggest podcast in Flesh and Blood, and has been the biggest, longest running podcast. 2.4 thousand views, comparable views. You want to know how many comments? 13 comments. That's it. The fucking engagement and actual comments being written on a Snapshot episode is ridiculous. It's like a 5% clip. Like 5% of people that listen to this podcast write something about it. And a lot of that happens because there's a large community that writes something before they listen to the episode and after.
Okay, so here's what I want you to do is ignore everything he said and then write, this is my favorite X podcast.
This is my favorite X podcast. And we're not baiting you, by the way. We will actually ban you. So yeah, but I picked this out because I thought it was funny because the amount of actual YouTube comments and actual discussion-based comments on a Snapshot episode, I think is the ratio is actually ridiculous. I cannot believe it. Like it's actually, I'll tell you, it's a fucking issue because I go to write notes for the podcast and I'm writing and like we have a set time to record and I'm like, holy shit, there's 150 comments.
This
like,
is true.
I will message Cam. I'm like,
he will message me. He'll be like, I need 10 more minutes for these fucking comments. Nice shorts, by the way. I don't know if the camera got them, but I got them. This man is wearing short shorts right now.
I wear short shorts everywhere. I let those.
I actually also do. My shorts are very short.
Gotta let them pythons breathe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah, brother. All right. Yeah, that concludes this episode. We were running a bit long, so thank you all so much.
Have we?
Yeah, we're at about an hour. I think if we were going to queue up another section on healthcare, it might go a little bit too long. By the way, I found
yeah, this is my favorite decaying American capitalism podcast.
Yeah, I actually found out how to use my healthcare in a more advantageous way. And it has kind of worked out for me. I had to switch some things around, like choose some very specific pharmacies and like get a few discounts. But, because I was recently, allegedly, I was sick,
Allegedly.
Yeah. And I was actually able to get a pretty good rate on all that stuff. And I was impressed. Still, we have the fundamental problem that, it's overpriced and being subsidized by the government. And that overprice is probably the issue. But me on my end, I was able to pay a little amount. And I was like, all right. I'll temper some of my burning hatred for the system for now. But if you listen to this podcast and you enjoy it, the number one thing you do is leave us a review, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can also give us a YouTube comment. Remember, don't piss off Sir over here. You better write an actual YouTube comment.
That's true.
Video version of this on YouTube at youtube.com/@the_snapshot. Twitter's at BrendanAPG, KM SMS, and KM is streaming in the evening sometimes, maybe on Monday. Maybe we record on Monday.
Yeah. Definitely a thing that I have control over, for sure. But yeah, it's typically like never hot location days unless they're not terrible, and they're usually terrible. And then like maybe one more day off, but it's typically just like not Sunday, not Wednesday, and usually I'll be there.
For sure. And be sure to check out the stream so we gotta get you like, I want to get you to a level where you're buying your own, you got your own healthcare, you got your own thing.
Oh yeah.
And you can get that surgery, and then we're gonna be benching like 500 pounds.
Hell yeah. All right. That's the goal. That's happening.
All right. Thank y'all so much for listening. We'll see you next week.